Okay. So, first thing, let's talk about motherhood. This is your only child.
Mm-hmm.
Describe that feeling, that bond from day one, holding this baby boy.
Well, while I was pregnant with him, I had a diary I kept. I'd write in every day a little something to him, about what I was feeling, and stuff. After he was born, the bond was, the feeling you have was just, I can't even explain it. You're just, I guess, in awe. I got home with him and I'm like, now what do I do with him? Because you have 9 months to carry him, he's inside your body, but now he's actually here. And I just never wanted to be separated from him, ever. So with that said, I took time off from work and stayed at home with him because I wasn't going to put him in daycare. I couldn't do that. And no, I couldn't. It was just, we were just too close. He went with me everywhere. He's like my best friend, my buddy. I can't even explain the feeling. I was excited when I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah, tell me about yourself when you found out.
Shock.
Your age, but I mean, just kind of where.
I was an older mom. I was an older mom. I had him when I was 33.
Okay.
I was shocked that I was going to be a mom. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. I was even happier when I found out I was having a boy. After I was born, I was like, I have a son. I have a son. I have a son. Wow, I'm a mom. I couldn't believe that, and I would tell myself, okay, there's no do-overs. You have to try to do things right the first time, And I really tried to focus on, that. So jumping ahead, all these years with what happened to him, that's everything I tried to prevent. And I thought I did, but I didn't.
You planned on just having this baby. No other babies.
Nope.
33. This is your boy.
This was mine.
You're happy with that?
Very happy.
My mom had me, she was 39. Just putting out that I'm an only child, only boy. I'm glad I didn't have any other ones.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that. So let's talk about him as the son. No matter what age he was, describe what he was like as your son. Everyone knows him as the friend, the buddy, the classmate, but what about the son?
He was loyal to his mom. That's for sure. We were at a store one time, and a friend of mine had been in there, but I didn't know he was in there, and he came up and he kind of like pinched me on the arm. I said, ow. And my son didn't know who he was. Took his bag of chips and hit him with it. Hit him with his bag of chips. Don't do that to my mom. And then when I turned around, it was a friend of mine, so it was okay. But he was very loyal to his mom, very protective. No matter who you were, it could have been his grandmother, me having an argument, or a friend of mine having an argument. He would jump in and just, let them have it. He would just say, don't talk to my mom like that. But then, as he gets older to a teenager, how teenagers get. Now we're, talking like that too. But he would always come tell me he was sorry. Always.
You mean like if you had an argument, or if he would talk back or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
He would come back later, that day or that night or whatever. Mom, I'm sorry. We could have knockdown, drag out arguments. He would always come back and apologize.
So how would you describe his character then? You need to say loyal.
He's very loyal to his friends as well. He always wanted to have fun. That was a key for him. Let's just have fun. Of course, kids like it, but literally, he liked to enjoy life. And one of the last things he said to me, his junior year before all this happened, was, Mom, I love my life. And that threw me for a loop because we were driving in the car and he just came out and said that out of nowhere. And he would do things like that. He would just come, and I could be in the kitchen cooking and he'd come up, Mom, I love you. And then 5 minutes later, we could probably have an argument, but still, he was that kind of a person. He didn't like a lot of conflict. He just wanted to have fun, enjoy life, very loyal to his friends, as well as he was loyal to me. If Nick was your friend, you had a friend for life. He would have your back all the way.
So when he would say these things, it would kind of put everything back into perspective, no matter what was going on, whether it was I love you or I'm happy. That's how it sounds like, right?
Yeah, he was. He was genuinely happy, I believe. Because after all this happened for a long time, I would ask myself, did I do right by my son? Was he happy? Well, I will never really know because I don't have that chance to see him grow up as an adult. and later have these conversations with him. How did you like your childhood? Did mom do okay? I don't have that to ask.
You mean it's like reflecting it when he's an adult?
Right. I will never be able to ask him those things.
Talk about his interest then as a teenager, his hobbies.
Interest.
What did he just love doing, whether it was the most simplest thing that made
Cars. He was really into cars. The exotic cars. Then like the street racers, like the Fast and the Furious. He's a big fan of that movie. Saw every single one of them with him. Tell me what he's going to do to the car. He wanted to take the car he was driving, which everybody says it's his car. In a sense it was, but it was still mom's car. He just drove it all the time. I'm going to put this exhaust on it, Mom. I was going to do this and that. I'm like, really?
You want to soup it up?
Yeah. So him and his friends, they bought this old, what was it? VW Golf car. I mean, the car was so bad they couldn't even, the battery was barely hanging on. You couldn't even get in, open the door, you had to crawl it. So the boys took it to one of his friend's house and they just started tearing the car apart. Just finding the workings of the car. They would put a chop top on it, and then they would put, the carbon fiber stuff on it. And I mean, they were just exploring with this car, but it was a good hobby because they weren't out in the streets doing anything. They were just tearing this car apart, trying to figure out the workings of the car and what they could do to it. I mean, they would put this fancy exhaust on it, but the car barely ran. But they had a good time doing it. So they would go to every last Sunday of the month, I think. There used to be this thing called Coffee and Cars. And they would go, and that's where all these guys meet and bring their cars, no matter what kind of car it is. They would bring it and just have it meet. And they used to meet at the Maya Cinemas. And then there was that thing called the Shift Sector. I think that's out in Bakersfield or Klinger or something like that, I'm not sure. Where you can go race your cars, legally. And it was a big deal for him. He really enjoyed cars.
So did that translate to his future aspirations? Like, did he want to actually be a mechanic or something, or work?
He wanted to do more something with fabrication, modifying them, making them faster, sleeker, kind of a deal. Yeah, that was one of his goals, and the other one was maybe he thought he'd be a highway patrol with the K9 unit. Those were his two things he was toggling back and forth with, at this time. And I'm sure they would have changed. As most kids do, they don't really know what they want, but cars for definite.
That was a passion. Whether he was going to do it as a career or not, that was something.
A car.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
He went to a good school in San Joaquin Memorial,
yes.
And he also did sports.
Soccer.
Talk about his involvement in his school and all in that.
He was a soccer player at school. Actually, this year he promised me that he was going to do track senior year. It was not a lot of people know this, but he was pretty good in long jump.
Oh.
Very good in long jump. But soccer was his thing. In fact, when he was a freshman, when he played freshman soccer, he got MVP, which was a big deal for him. He doesn't like to be the center of attention, but when he got this award, he was just so ecstatic about it. I was ecstatic too. I was so proud of him. But yeah, he played soccer. He played comp soccer, as well. He played elementary soccer. So he started playing soccer when he was 5 years old.
So this is your only child. You guys pretty much are partners in crime. You spend all your time together. I'm trying to understand, the parenthood. Is it you and your family raising him? Is mostly you? Just kind of what was it?
It was me and my mom, Nick's grandma. The rest of my family lives out of state. So it's just us three here. So after I found I was pregnant and stuff, my mom and I talked, and we thought it would be better to have him grow up with all, just us than just me. So he'd have some sense of, a family, a real family, I guess. I don't know what society, calls it, but just with that, not just with me. But in a sense, it was just with me because, Grandma had her life, and she did her thing, and then I had, my son. But we lived in the same house. We do things together, and matter of fact, she was the first one to hold him. I didn't get to hold him because I had a C-section, so I was knocked out.
You call yourself like a single mom, but grandma was there all the time.
Yes.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we know about his background as a kid, what he was into. Fast forward to June 24th in your last conversation with him.
I can tell you exactly what he said to me. He was supposed to be going to a different friend's house that night. Plans fell through. So he comes in my room and he's, Mom, I'm going to Daniel's house. I said, really? I go, well, it's kind of late, and you know what your curfew is? He goes, God, in summer school just started, they, barely been out of school. I said, okay, well, you just better be home by your curfew time. He said, okay. He goes, as he's running down the stairs, he goes, bye, Mom, I'll see you when I get home. 11:30 came. I didn't get a text from him. And I always, if he was going to be late, he would always text. So I text him, so, okay, it's 10 minutes after your curfew. I haven't heard from you. We didn't discuss. You stay, and that was on his, phone. And then the next thing I know, the phone's ringing. My cell phone. I tell my mom, oh, here he is. Let's hear what excuse he's going to give while he's late. It was the sheriff department telling me that when I heard it was the sheriff department, to be honest with you, I thought, oh my God, they finally got in trouble, because they used to like to go to Bullard High School and sit on the roof and just look at the stars, him and Holden, his friends. I mean, innocent, but I told him, you shouldn't be out there. So I thought that's what the conversation was going to lead into with the sheriff. However, that's not what happened. He said there had been a botched robbery, and that my son was grazed by a bullet. Okay, so then I get excited, and of course, your emotion, adrenaline's going, and he said, you maybe need to calm down. And I had a few choice words for him, and I handed the phone to my mom, got dressed, and I was out the door with probably in 2 minutes, driving to the hospital. I get to the hospital, and we walk into the emergency room. I tell them, I'm here to see my son. I gave him his name. We don't have anybody here by that name. I said, well, the sheriff department just called me, and they told me to get down here. And they're asking, what sheriff? The Fresno County sheriff, I don't know. I mean, I can't remember his last name. I think it started with an S, but I'm not for sure. And then they told me I needed to wait outside in the parking lot. They would not let me in the hospital. My mom tried to go in there to get help. What do we do here? What? Talk to a social worker. What's the social worker going to do? They would not let me in the hospital. I sat in that parking lot for 5 hours, not knowing what's going on with my son, not knowing what they're doing to my son. No one came out to tell me what was going on. Nothing. I didn't see my son until they moved him to ICU. But before I got up there, I remember sitting in the back of my car, and these two sheriffs come up, or somebody, I believe, and really kind of told us what happened. And I just remember kind of falling to my knees. And then I got myself together, had a few choice words for them, and I said, get out of my way. I'm going in. No one's going to stop me from going in here now. I don't care who you are. I just marched myself right in there. Got up, and then finally they let me into the ICU. And that's when I found out he was not grazed by a bullet. He was shot in the back of the head, running away from these people that pulled up to rob him. They didn't take any money from him. All he had was $12 in his wallet. And that $12 is still sitting in his wallet today. They didn't take his cell phone. They took nothing but his life. And his life meant nothing to those people. In the condition that he was in, I knew it wasn't good when I walked into the ICU. But I stayed in there for 4 days with him, holding his hand. And if I had to go to the bathroom, I made sure somebody else would hold his hand. But what I'm angry about the hospital not letting me do is see him the minute I got there. I just wanted to tell him that I was there. I'm here. And they took that from me. Even though he probably wouldn't have understood or hear what I was saying, I needed that. So when I did get into the ICU, as he was laying there, he had this tear coming down the side of his face. And I tell myself that was his way of telling me, Mama, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make this. So we sat there, and then they had to run the test. I guess it's a law, they have to run these tests, and they have to check the vitals and all that and stuff. Well, where he was shot in the back of the head, it had to deal with all the respiratory organs, is what I was told. I don't know for sure, because as to date, I haven't read any medical records. I don't even really know what happened that night of the incident. I can't get the police records, I get reports, incident, nothing. I get nothing. So basically, I'm still sitting in the dark about actually what has happened to him. You know, how long did it take them to get him from point A to point B? What did they do for him behind those closed doors in the emergency room where I had to wait outside? Okay, and all I did in ICUs, he just, you know, they had him on the respirator, and he was just on the respirator, head bandaged, and that was it.
Cool.
Then they did the second test, and they concurred that it wasn't going to have a good outcome, that I would have to take him off the respirator. So before I did that, I went out and I spoke to the kids in the waiting room. I didn't want a doctor to do it. I didn't want anybody to tell the kids but me. And I told them that Nick is no longer here. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do, besides see my son in the condition that he was in. So I had to tell him goodbye. I told him it's okay, he can go. I understand, honey, it's not your fault. Mom wanted to be here for you. I wanted you to know it was there as quick as I could be there. And then they took him off the life support. And then we all left the hospital. When you have a baby, you go home with all this stuff. Baby, you know, paperwork. I left that hospital with nothing. Not even so much as a piece of paper saying I left my son there. And it says, you're supposed to go on day by day like this now. It's like, you know, there are days where that the shock still comes in and out. You know, but it's a different kind. We had court recently, and we've had many court dates. But this one was very difficult for me for some reason. I had to leave the courtroom. I have to live with this every day for the rest of my life. That these people did this to my son. I got up that Sunday morning happy. Had I known my Sunday evening was going to end like it would. And the bad thing about all this is that the people who did this, in my opinion, have more rights than I do. I have to sit back, and I just have to take whatever they're telling me. There's nothing, there's Marcy's Law where I'm supposed to be entitled to the right of a speedy trial just like they are, but that's not what's happening. He probably knows more about all this stuff than I know. And I think Prop 47 had a lot to do with why my son was killed.
And that's what I want to ask about now. So Prop 47, basically, this man accused of doing this had meth in his possession. And
Earlier that day,
there
was a phone call to the police department, something about a disturbance at the Motel 6. And I guess the police showed up, and there were guns and drugs and some of the people there. that their names are never brought out to public, but everybody else's names are. I can't figure that one out. Well, anyways, so I've been told that the one person admitted to the guns were his, and Espinosa is the one that had the meth. And according to what I've been told, he's never had any run-ins with law enforcement. But that's not to say he wasn't doing anything bad. Okay? But because of Prop 47, having meth in your pocket is no longer a felony. It's a misdemeanor. So they cited him and let him go. Had Prop 47 not been in effect, they would have taken him to jail. And he wouldn't have been free to do all those other little things he did that evening. So I've had many people tell me, oh, well, Prop 47 didn't kill your son. That person did. I said, Prop 47 did kill my son. Because he had that meth in his pocket, and if that wasn't passed, they would have taken him to jail for a felony. But because Prop 47 was in effect, they let him go.
You've done your research on it, I can tell, so you firmly believe
I do.
Prop 47 is the reason.
Yes, I do. And I don't see they're trying to make cutbacks. So let me just say this. If having Prop 47 in effect is making all these cutbacks, because the taxpayers want to save money, well, guess what? Now the taxpayers are footing the bill for him to have an attorney. So let's see. If Prop 47 was in effect, they would have taken him to jail. It would have been a lot less costly. Now he's in jail, and we got to pay for these attorneys.
And we have a new governor named Gavin Newsom. He has stated that he does support Prop 47, reportedly. Your thoughts on that? And obviously you believe you're directly affected, but you're concerned for other parents, other people.
Well, if this can happen to my son, who was doing nothing wrong, he was at a friend's house doing teenage things. They weren't doing anything but skateboarding and hanging out at this friend's house. Okay? If it can happen to my son, it can happen to anybody. We didn't know these people. And that just goes to show that Prop 47 is not benefiting the community. It's supposed to be, keeping California safe? How is that keeping California safe? By letting them go. How is it saving the taxpayers money? By letting them go. Because now we're paying twice as much probably to handle this one person. You know, because he has to have a special attorney that handles special cases with special circumstances, like death penalty cases. And the public defender's office is not defending him because there's a conflict of interest. So now they had to go to an outside attorney, but I believe how they deal with it is contracted by the county. And there's very few that take these kind of cases. And that's, I think, why we were in court so long the other day.
You feel like there are thousands of 17-year-olds, whether boy or girl, here in Fresno County, that could be
Yes, I
Nick
do.
Kauls.
Yes, I do. This was a Sunday night. Who would have thought? And he's hanging out on a fairly prestigious side of town. You know, everybody knows that side of town when you just mention the street. They know exactly where it's at. It can happen anywhere.
Old Fig, you're talking about.
Yes.
You probably dropped him off there many times.
Many
Have
times.
you been back there, and if you have, just what is that like, trying to retrace the footsteps and just standing in that space?
I did go back to see the little memorial thing that they had put up out front. I asked the owners, please don't tell me when any of this happened. I don't want to know. And that's the last and only time I've been back. I won't go back. Christmas Tree Lane was a big thing for Nick and I. We'd drive it. When he was little, we'd go probably every night Christmas Tree Lane was open. And this was the first year I didn't go down Christmas Tree Lane. I don't want any part of that over there.
And obviously you guys had special memories there.
Yep. That was heartbreaking about this Christmas is like we didn't do the Christmas Tree Lane drive, and nor did I want to.
It's been, about 7 months now? Has that been the hardest part, is getting through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year?
Every day. Every day's hard. because, you know, he's your child. You see them every single day. And yeah, the holidays were very difficult for me, but because of the group of friends that I have, they didn't let me slide into that. They were very helpful in getting me through that time. And the greatest group of women you would ever know. I'm very grateful to have them as my friends. And they know that going to court and with Nick's birthday coming up in the holidays, that this has been very, very hard on me. They know when I'm having issues with it. I don't even have to say anything and they know. And it's hard every single day. Every day I have to deal with this. I think about my son. I miss my son. You know, I have moments where I just cry all the time. And I still can't believe this has happened to me. Why? How? And then I have to think about the Prop 47. And shame on us for not really reading it all the way through, the people who voted it and passed it. I think, you know, a lot of people out there, when election time comes around, we're always so busy with the daily goings on in our lives, you know, that we don't really stop to educate ourselves on the things that we're voting on. We might read the first few lines, say, okay, that's good, you know, and make our decision from that. We don't really think, or, you know, really read through it and think of the, you know, ramifications of it and all this stuff. Because to me, common sense tells you that this isn't working, this Prop 47. I don't care if they tell me, oh, crime's down. Okay, crime's down because why? What was once a felony is now a misdemeanor. So of course it's going to look like the numbers are down, in my opinion.
Let's talk about how you want to keep his memory alive. You know, what's next? Because yes, every day is hard, but at the same time, you want to keep that legacy alive, and you want people to see his face and see that smile.
One of the things that I have done to do that is I had started a scholarship fund at San Joaquin Memorial in his name. So what happens every year, a student, well, actually how I've done it is I pick a freshman, they have to write an essay, pick them, and I'll stay with them through the whole 4 years of Memorial.
Each year?
Each year they will get the funds, yes.
Okay.
And then...
so it's one freshman a year?
Well, I have two, I did two, because I read their essays and I just couldn't do both. I had to do both.
Wow.
So one's going through the scholarship fund, and then I'm personally doing the other one.
And are you able to say, like, well, how much is it worth for each person?
Well, right now, well, the school sets those limits. I don't get to set those limits. Okay. So I think it has to do with, you know, the tax purposes and all that stuff. But as of now, each child will get $500 a year. Okay, and I know that says, oh, that's nothing compared to the tuition, but it does help out.
It's a contribution.
It's a, you know, it takes the registration away or something like that. Now, the more money I put into the fund, or the more money that the kids will get, you know. But that's the stipulation for now, and I don't have any control over that.
So you're trying to raise money, obviously, to keep adding to that fund,
right,
so it can keep on going.
I have made shirts with the logo that his friend Jordan Mather designed. And we sold those, and we put the profits from that into the school fund. We've done stickers. But the next thing we've been working on, and we've been working on since day one really, is the ribbons, the red and blue ribbons that we, you know, they started hanging them in Fig Garden. And then that kind of died down. But now with the case starting to really start progressing, you know, through the courts, I would like to get that back out. My sister, who lives in Florida, she has gotten people like in states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, here, to put bows up. And we have all the pictures, you know, and stuff on Facebook, you know, with that. And I'd like to keep doing that. It helps me when I know that the community is behind me. And the memorial community has been very, very kind to me and very supportive.
2019 is here. He would have turned 18 and getting ready to graduate college. These are things that you think about as a mother when he's 6, 12, and imagining him wearing that cap and gown.
Funny you mentioned that, because before this accident happened, he was getting ready to take his senior pictures. His suit and everything was hanging on my closet. And I had to come home from the hospital after leaving my son there to see that. Yeah. Graduation will be a hard day for me to have to accept that my son won't be graduating from there. He would have been the third generation that went. That was a big deal for us. My mom went there, I went there, and then my son.
That's a big deal. You make it a point for him to get there. You work your butt off for him to get there. And
well, funny thing, 8th grade year, I homeschooled him. And he was going to start high school. And said, what do you want to do? I want to go to Memorial, Mom. I said, okay. That's what you want to do. Let's do it. I was very happy to hear that he wanted to go there. He was happy there. He was happy at the school. And that was very enlightening to me. I was so happy that he was happy there because, you know, turn the clock back a little bit. Junior high, 7th grade, so, kids wasn't so kind to him. So he wanted to be homeschooled 8th grade year. I did that. And I think he had enough of me really that year. So he wanted to go back.
To be homeschooled. So that just shows you guys are extremely close. And you are, in a good way, you're a very protective mother of your only cub and vice versa. So I guess as you mean how heartbreaking it is to do everything in your power to give him the best life. And
he died of the very thing he was afraid of. We could be walking down the street and I would see those kids hanging their pants really low, and he goes, Mom, don't say anything to them. Don't say anything. He didn't like to get out of the car if there was a homeless person around. He didn't like that kind of stuff. He wasn't into that kind of conflict or lifestyle. And that's another thing that just kills me. Everything I tried to protect him from is what took him from me.
And so you think, you know him better than anyone. He was running away from this threat.
And that's another.
That's what
He wouldn't have put up a fight. He would.
He wouldn't. This is something serious. You don't really put up a fight against this.
No, not when it comes. He. And I've always told him, somebody comes with a gun, you get out of there. And then I'm thinking, did I tell him the right thing? Maybe I should have told him not to, or maybe do something else. You second guess yourself. What you tell your kids? But I think his instincts were, I've got to get out of here. And what breaks my heart the most is what must have been going through his mind when he was running. The fear of it. Because I've been told that from where he was shot that it went quick. He probably didn't really feel it. That's what they say. I don't know, again, because I don't know the exact positioning and whatnot. But it's the fear of him noticing it where there was somebody pointing a gun at him and they weren't playing around. And by him running, what was going through his mind? I got to get saved. I got to call my mom. I got to, got to tell her. That's what I think would be going through his mind.
And you may not have been there, but you see the image. You can replay it. It's almost like...
Well, it's funny you say that because when he wasn't calling me back or texting me back after those messages that I text him, I was going to get in my car and drive over there. And I said, no, he's going to be a senior. It's okay. Let him spread his wings. Let's wait and hear his story, and that's when the phone call and stuff. But I've been told the time of the shooting is the same time I was sending my text message for the second time, asking him, why haven't you called me back?
It was absolutely a gut feeling that you had.
I just felt something wasn't right because he's always on schedule about calling me. If he's going to be late or if he can stay out later, he always would be in communication. So I sent two text messages to them that night before the sheriff called.
And even closer, we talked about graduation, but there's so many symbols and symbolic moments as a young man, 18th birthday. Did he talk about his 18th birthday, what he wanted to do, or just that meaning of becoming 18?
Funny with my son is he didn't like to be the center of attention, like when it came to birthdays and stuff. We did his 16th birthday. It was, pretty elaborate. He didn't really say what he wanted to do for his 18th birthday, but I can tell you this. Before this accident happened, we're riding in the car and he goes, Mom, I already can tell you what I want for Christmas. And this is, summer. I want a really nice camera. So when Christmas came around, I'm thinking, when I don't get to shop for my son, and I knew what he wanted for Christmas. And that was a really hard thing for me to deal with. A lot of people didn't know that. And it's like, for college, he talked to me about, after graduating from high school, he couldn't decide if he wanted to go to like a 4-year college, get away from mom, or stay home, live in the, we have a house that's like a next gen home, so it has a house within a house. And he always wanted to live in that spot. I said, when you're 18, you can move from upstairs to your little, apartment or whatever they call it. That's where the kids would hang out when they'd come over. They kind of had their own little place, but it's inside my home, so I could keep an eye on them, but they'd still have their own space. So I think, for his 18th, he would probably want to move into the little apartment or mother-in-law suite.
And that's another question, how hard is that? Because several kids running around, joking around, playing pranks in your house, and now
I don't go in his bedroom. The door stays shut. I've been in there once. Not by wanting to, but because I had to. Because there was a rumor floating around. Something was in his room. But let me go back. The police come to my house and have to search his room because this guy shot and killed my son. Somewhere along the lines, I don't see that as being very fair. But, we had nothing to hide. Go, by all means. What can I help you find? What is it you're looking for? There's nothing. There's nothing in his room. I don't know what they're looking for. They said they wanted to see, what kind of a kid he was, And
so once you've been in there,
mm-hmm.
Because you can't go in there.
Nope. I do, and his basketball hoop is still sitting out in front of my house. The things in his bathroom, the downstairs bathroom, are still in there. I'm not taking any of that away. I'm going to leave it just where it is. It doesn't have to go anywhere. Why do I have to move it?
You're so conditioned to, talking to him every day, seeing him. At some points, being there, is it hard? Do you, like, in a way, hear him, or I don't know. Do you see signs?
Well, I don't sleep in my room either anymore, because that's where I was when I got the phone call. I can't do it. There are some times when I'm talking to someone, I'll say, Mom, or Lorena, or, his name will slip out. My friends tell me, he'll come to you in your dreams. I did have one recently, and I haven't had any dreams since this happened, of any kind. And it was me hugging him and holding him, and we were inside the car. And I was telling him, how could you be gone if I'm sitting here and I'm hugging you? How can you be gone? And needless to say, I woke up, but it was just like a dream within a dream within a dream. It's very difficult. I have he was a Hot Wheel collector, still have all those. He was a Lego collector when he was younger. I haven't gotten rid of any of his things, and I don't intend to.
Last thing, you have seen since June the countless news stories, the coverage, whether in the paper, TV, online, and you have kept your silence, and you have been patient, and you have hurt and gone through this pain. Why do you send your message now? What is it that has spoken to you to speak out for your son?
One is because the case is really starting to, I guess, what do you want to say, take place. We've had a lot of preliminaries. Now it's starting to really go. And I think I didn't want people to lose sight of what happened over the summer. I want them to remember my son and what happened to him, because it can happen to their child. It can happen to you. And I don't want that to happen. If we could just save one person because of this. We need to get the laws changed. We need to start taking back our state. You know, these laws that have been passed, I don't know if anybody's read these new laws that have been passed for this new year. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. And I want people to remember that my son loved life, and this stranger who was let go because of Prop 47 took my son's life. For what? What did this guy get for shooting my son? What did he benefit from this? Nobody benefited. Nobody. So that's why. And I will continue to probably be a little more active now because of the courts. You know, we're moving along with it, but I'm just fed up with some of these laws. You know, Governor Brown, come on. Like, so, and then he moves to Idaho. Wow, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then Newsom's now in office. And I know he's met with Jerry Dyer. And I know they had a conversation about my son's case. And he still is in favor of Prop 47. So how is that still keeping California safe? I don't see how it's working at all.